This is the DJI Osmo Action 5 Pro. It has a new 4nm processor and an all-new imaging sensor, with the promise of battery durations that have been unheard of in such a camera until now. Is this going to be the action camera to beat all action cameras? Let's find out. Now, it's fair to say that DJI has shaken up the action camera market quite a bit with its Osmo Action series, and it looks like the Osmo Action 5 Pro is going to do the same. The exterior looks very similar to last year's Osmo Action 4, but one of the key things about this camera is what's inside. It's a brand new sensor, and more importantly, it's a brand new processor. It uses a 4nm process, which means it's incredibly power efficient. DJI claims that this camera can get around 4 hours of battery time in 1080p. Now, power is one of those things that is incredibly important on an action camera. You don't want to be changing your battery out in wet and cold environments. You don't want to risk getting any water or moisture inside the battery compartment. So the longer the battery can last, the better. And it's probably one of the key things that I would be looking for in an action camera, aside from the usual stuff such as how good a POV it can create from an immersively wide lens. But battery life is up there as one of the most important factors in an action camera. The new sensor on the Osmo Action 5 won't allow you to record 8K footage. 4K is the maximum resolution that you can use on the camera. However, it will take 40 megapixel photos in RAW and in JPEG. This gives you a lot of editability. If you're doing something like lens distortion correction, you normally get that fisheye effect and you might want to correct that. Having that extra resolution available to you is pretty neat to have. The new processor inside the Osmo Action 5 has also enabled some spectacular new features, such as an ultra slow motion mode. You can take 120 frames per second footage, and in camera it will process a new file at around 900 frames per second. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to test this because the camera that I have, as you can see, took a bit of a hit. There is an icon which you're supposed to be able to hit in the playback function of the camera to get it to process this. That icon was not available on the front screen, so unfortunately I haven't been able to test it, and it was a feature that I was really looking forward to giving a go. And as soon as I do manage to find a way of doing it, though, I will post some examples of slow motion because I would like to see just how good this is. That said, I have been using the other slow motion modes on it, and it does produce a really good image. As you'd expect, 4K 120 frames per second is a go-to standard these days for slow motion. It's spectacular enough as it is. Now, one of the main reasons I use an action camera is for POV footage and also for training footage while I'm practicing freestyle kayaking. But for POV, the Osmo Action series is absolutely fantastic. It has an awesome ultra-wide lens mode on it, which is one of the best on the market. Now, it's not quite as tall as the GoPro, particularly if you're using the ultra-wide lens mod on the Hero 13 in 1x1 mode, but for the built-in ultra-wide lens on this camera, it is just sublimely good. It gives you a very immersive viewpoint from a POV perspective, and it has slightly less distortion than you get with the hyperview mode on the GoPro. DJI has improved the weatherproofing and the ability of the camera to withstand deep water depths. Another notable new addition, it's very niche, but it has also now included a depth sensor. So if you use the camera outside of a dive case, it will detect how far down you're going in the water, and you can use that telemetry data to overlay graphics on top of your videos. It retains the magnetic mount as seen in the previous Osmo Action series, which again is a really neat feature. GoPro has just introduced a new magnetic clip system of its own, but DJI's has gained ground, and it's very easy to get hold of these mounts from third parties as well as DJI itself. Fast charging also features, and is something that I really wish GoPro would do. You can charge this to get around 2.5 hours runtime within about 15 minutes, and that's super convenient. D-Log-M also features in 10-bit, which means that the camera is really good for grading as far as action cameras go. There's also a mode inside the camera which allows you to correct for the log profile. This doesn't bake in the image in camera, it's just a reference point when you're looking at the LCD to see a log corrected image. Just like the GoPro, the Osmo Action 5 Pro features a hydrophobic lens cover. The only thing I found with it is that this rubber surround comes off it quite easily. It's something that was a problem on the previous cameras, and I'm not entirely sure why DJI hasn't just made this a fixed item that won't come off. The front display, as per the Osmo Action 4, is also a touchscreen display, which, as I've found, has been incredibly useful. This rear screen is no longer functioning at all in any way, so I can't frame footage, but I can use the front screen to change the settings on it. So I'm kind of thankful for having this front screen. I don't have to go into my phone app in order to change the settings on the camera. But it does highlight, on all action cameras at the moment, how vulnerable these rear LCD screens are. I'm not sure what the solution is. This took a hit off a mountain bike and it just went. The GoPro also took a hit and had a damaged display, although that one still functions, thankfully. The built-in sound is, as you'd expect for an action camera, it's pretty good, but as soon as you get into windy conditions, then things fall apart pretty quickly. But this camera has an ace up its sleeve. You can connect up to 2 DJI Mic 2 microphone transmitters to this camera, and obviously with these microphones you can do a 32-bit float backup audio recording as well, which means that this action camera can record the highest quality audio in its genre. The only drawback is that these are not waterproof, so you won't want to use it in a water sports environment at all. But if you're in good weather mountain biking, you might want to do commentary while you're doing your activity, or just plain old vlogging. This means that the DJI Osmo Action 5 Pro is the leader in the market for audio capture. There is no other action camera that can do this. You can connect this microphone to a GoPro Hero 13, but it connects by transmitting 16 kilohertz audio, which is pretty low quality. So if audio is your thing, then this is definitely the action camera you will want to get. Now, a really clever function of the Osmo Action 5 is that it has the ability to track you almost like a gimbal. So it records at 2.7K and it will track you and pan around the image as if it is on a moving gimbal. It's an odd effect. It seems to do some sort of perspective correction as well. So it does in fact look like it's on a gimbal. It doesn't just look like it's panning around the image to follow you. The only caveat with it is that you do take a resolution hit. As I say, it's 2.7K and the quality doesn't seem quite up there with the other modes. You can't adjust the picture settings in the same way, so you can't record in log, but it's quite a clever function nonetheless, and I can see this getting better and better as these cameras go on. The reliability of the camera has been stellar. It's to be expected of a DJI camera. The only thing is sometimes when I've turned it on, it has taken a few seconds. Generally, it is much faster at switching on than a GoPro, but there have been a couple of occasions where I've had a bit of a longer period where it's taken a while to turn on. I'm not sure why that is. It's probably something that can be corrected in a future firmware. Most of the time though, it does get up and running much more quickly than a GoPro does. There is also a low light mode on it for shooting in super low light conditions. Now, I'm of the opinion that action cameras are not really low light creatures. I'm not sure entirely who is going about their business shooting ultra low light footage all of the time, wandering around town in the pitch black expecting super amazing footage. It seems to me to be a very niche use, but action camera manufacturers are taking note and they are including more of these modes on these cameras. And the one on the Osmo Action 5, it performs very well, but just like some of the other modes on other cameras, you do take a bit of a quality hit. It uses a lot of noise reduction in camera, and again, you can't use the log mode or adjust your picture profile settings quite as much as you can in the normal modes. For me, these low light modes are a little bit of a gimmick to satisfy those people who really want a low light mode, but it is here if you want it. It works pretty well, but as I say, there are some notable differences in the quality between that mode and the other standard modes on the camera. I would much rather shoot in conditions where I know the lighting is going to be good, use the camera to its advantages, and then do any noise reduction that's needed in post. Now, I know a lot of people don't want to do that, they just want to point and shoot, but you know, that mode is on the camera if you want to use it. Now, battery life, how does it function in practice? Well, I don't tend to use the 1080p modes. I've been using it in 4K most of the time. I did a continuous test with it and I managed around 171 minutes continuous recording. That was at 4K at 30 frames per second. I had the screen on and I also had the real steady stabilisation on as well. It didn't miss a beat. The outside of the camera, you could still touch it. A lot of these cameras, they heat up to the point where you can barely touch them. This was just lukewarm the entire time. It's an extremely impressive feat, and it's no doubt due to the 4nm processor inside this camera. As I said earlier, battery life is incredibly important, and for most users of this camera, I can see you getting away with having one battery. 2 at the most will get you through most of the day, and the fact that this thing will fast charge to most of its capacity within 15 minutes means that you can be up and running in no time at all. You are never going to have any problems with battery life on the Osmo Action 5. Another notable feature of this camera is the 47 gigabytes of built-in storage. Now, that's not a lot in this day and age as far as SD cards are concerned, but to have that built in is absolutely brilliant. It means that if you are running out on your main SD card, you've still got that backup storage available to you. It's a really neat feature to have, and it's actually quite surprising that it doesn't feature in any other cameras. So I really like that. Sometimes I have been a bit of a doofus and I have forgotten to put SD cards in my action cameras before. So again, that's not going to be a problem with this camera. Now, are there any downsides to this camera? It's very difficult for me to come up with many downsides because it's so well built. And, you know, an action camera is a very niche device. It's designed for very specific uses. The only drawbacks that I found so far is this, the LCD screen. So if any of the action camera companies can find a way of toughening this up, then that would be very welcome indeed. If I was really finicky, I could say that if I want to tether it, I have to use the external frame on it, which makes it bigger and bulkier on a helmet. But it's kind of a bit of a first world problem in many ways. But otherwise, no, there's not a lot to fault on this. Now, I know that sounds pretty gushing. I'm not just saying it just because DJI have sent it to me. I don't get to keep it, by the way, but I am genuinely impressed with what the company has done with this device. It's actually quite difficult to see how things can progress even further. I mean, from now on, you're pretty much only going to get minor increments in quality in the various modes. It's very hard to see how an action camera can be truly innovative anymore. But when it comes to things like battery life, if those aspects can continue to improve, then I think we can probably go a long way, particularly when we reach the point where the internal processors use something like a 3nm process or even a 2nm process, then battery life on these things is really going to go sky high. So the question is, should you get this camera instead of the GoPro or any other action camera such as the Insta360 Ace Pro? Well, I have to say, this is an extremely impressive device. On the battery life alone, that is reason enough to get this camera. It's reliable, the colours are great out of the camera in the standard modes and in D-Log M if you grade it. I like the tunability of the image. It all depends on what you want to do with it. As far as most action camera users go, you won't go wrong with this. As I say, the battery life is just absolutely incredible, and if you're an action sports enthusiast, then that's going to be a big consideration, particularly if you want to use it in cold weather conditions where battery life can be affected by the environment. And for myself, doing a lot of water sports, if I'm changing a battery in a camera, there's water dripping from my helmet, I don't want to risk that getting inside. So having this battery life is important to me. But as far as saying one action camera is so much better than another, it's much more nuanced than that. It comes down to how you use the camera. I said this in my GoPro review as well. It depends entirely what you want to do with it. The GoPro has some unique features of its own, such as the GoPro Labs firmware, which allows a lot of functionality on it to be set that you can't do on any other action camera. But if you're a kind of person who wants really high quality, you're not interested in all that, battery life is incredibly important to you, and you also want a camera that you can just take out of the box and use straight away, then you cannot go wrong with the Osmo Action 5 Pro. It is an immensely well designed camera, and I hope other manufacturers will take note of this. There are rumours of another action camera coming to market soon, which could possibly shake up things even further. What I'm glad to see is that we're getting more and more advanced features on these cameras. We're getting much better battery life. It's an exciting time to be an action camera enthusiast. Can I recommend this camera? Absolutely. You can't go wrong with it.